Have you ever wondered how our experience of a color or a sound comes about, and why science struggles to explain it? In the mid-20th century, famed physicist Erwin Schrödinger, best known for his role in developing quantum mechanics, turned his attention to this very puzzle of consciousness and subjective experience. In an essay titled The Mystery of the Sensual Qualities, Schrödinger explores a profound question. How do the raw facts of the physical world relate to the rich sensual qualities we experience in our minds? Schrödinger uses the term sensual qualities to mean the qualities of our sense experiences, the subjective feeling of colors, sounds, tastes, and so on. He noticed a curious paradox. All of our knowledge of the physical world comes through our senses, yet the scientific picture of the world that we build, using physics and chemistry, leaves out those very sensory qualities. In other words, science describes the world in terms of molecules, atoms, and waves, things with size, shape, and motion, but nowhere in that objective description do qualities like red, bitter, or sweet themselves appear. Schrödinger was fascinated by this gap between mind and matter. He wanted to understand why our inner experiences, like the vivid sensation of color, seem to fall outside the scope of physical science. So let's delve into Schrödinger's insights. In this video, we'll summarize Schrödinger's own views from the mystery of the sensual qualities in simple language. We'll see how he explains the problem using relatable examples, like seeing colors and hearing sounds, and what conclusions he draws about consciousness and the relationship between mind and the physical world. Schrödinger approaches this mystery almost like a detective story, using science to reveal a philosophical secret hiding in plain sight: our subjective experience. Schrödinger begins by highlighting a fundamental problem. Imagine asking a scientist to explain a simple sensation, say, the color yellow. What is yellow, really? The scientist might reply that yellow light is nothing more than electromagnetic waves of about 590 nanometers wavelength. In other words, from a physicist's perspective, yellow is described as a certain kind of vibration or energy. But then Schrödinger poses a sharp follow-up question. Where does the actual yellow, the experienced color, come in? The honest answer, Schrödinger points out, would be, in my picture, not at all. In the physicist's objective description of light, there is no mention of the subjective sensation, the golden quality that we actually see in our mind. This sets up the core issue. There is a disconnect between the physical description of the world and the way we experience it. To drive this point home, Schrödinger gives a striking example involving the color yellow. Two very different physical situations can produce the same sensation of yellow in our minds. One is a pure beam of yellow light, with wavelength about 590 nanometers. Another is a mixture of red and green light, specifically waves around 760 nanometers, deep red, even partly infrared, combined with waves around 535 nanometers, green. Physically, these two lights are completely different wavelengths mixing together versus a single wavelength. Yet to our eyes, they look identical. Both appear as the same shade of yellow. We cannot tell them apart by sensation alone. As Schrödinger notes, there is no way one could predict, just from studying those wavelengths, that they would yield the same color experience. The physics, the light waves, and the conscious experience, the color we see, do not neatly correspond. Or in Schrödinger's words, the sensation of color cannot be accounted for by the physicist's objective picture of light waves. Schrödinger then asks, if physics alone can't explain why yellow feels yellow, what about biology? Perhaps a physiologist studying the eye and brain could explain it. He considers this. Imagine we knew everything about how the eye's retina absorbs light and how the optic nerves and brain process those signals. Could we then account for the sensation of color? Schrödinger's answer is still, I do not think so. Even a perfect map of neural activity would just be an objective description of cells and electrical impulses firing. Nowhere in that description would we find the essence of yellow or blue as we experience it. He writes, Even with intimate knowledge of every nerve process, it would not tell us anything about the sensation of color, because the same physiological processes might conceivably result in a sensation of sweet taste or anything else. In other words, knowing which neuron lights up doesn't reveal why a particular experience, visual or taste, etc., is the way it is. No physical description of a brain process includes qualities like yellow or sweet, just as the description of a light wave doesn't include those qualities. After discussing color, Schrödinger turns to sound, another example of a sensual quality. By analogy, sound in physics is described as vibrating air, pressure waves of certain frequencies. And in physiology, we can detail how the eardrum, inner ear, and neurons work to detect those vibrations. Yet, just as with color, no matter how detailed the physical or biological description, the actual experience of sound isn't there in the description. Schrödinger puts it bluntly: neither the physicist's description nor that of the physiologist contains any trait of the sensation of sound. You can dissect the ear and trace signals in the brain, but as he says, nowhere shall we hit on this registering as sound, which is only in the mind of the person perceiving it. The pleasant melody of music, the sharp pain of a loud noise, those qualities exist in our conscious awareness, not in the vibrating molecules themselves. Schrödinger doesn't stop at sight and hearing. He also reflects on smell, taste, and touch. For instance, our tongues can experience only a few basic taste qualities, like sweet, salty, bitter, sour, even though there are countless different chemical stimuli in the world. He notes quirky facts. For example, a certain white powder, he couldn't recall the name, is tasteless to some people, but extremely bitter to others. Today we know this relates to genetic differences in taste receptors. Schrödinger uses this to point out that different people's sensory worlds might not be identical. Tastes differ in quite a general way and in a very real sense, he concludes. Each of us ultimately experiences a world inside our own mind, and there's no absolute guarantee it's the same as someone else's experience, since these qualities are subjective. Having shown that subjective sensations like color or sound vanish from the scientific description of the world, Schrödinger brings the discussion to a philosophical climax. Science, by design, aims to be objective. It strips away personal perspectives to describe things in measurable terms. Schrödinger calls this the principle of objectivation, the idea that we remove anything personal or mental from our scientific picture of nature. This objectivation has been fabulously successful for physics and chemistry, but it comes at a cost. It makes the mind itself seem like an anomaly, something that doesn't fit the picture. As Schrödinger writes in a related essay, the world picture itself is a construct of the mind, and apart from it has no demonstrable existence. Yet the mind itself remains a stranger in this picture. It has no place in it, it can nowhere be found in it. We end up with a scientific world of atoms and equations without the observer, the conscious self, appearing anywhere in that world. This is the very mystery he is highlighting. How can it be that our minds are real enough to create a picture of the world, but that picture fails to include minds? To illustrate this paradox, Schrödinger reaches back over 2,000 years to an ancient thinker, Democritus. He quotes a fragment in which Democritus imagines a debate between the intellect and the senses. The intellect proudly declares, ostensibly there is color, sweetness, bitterness, but actually there are only atoms and the void. The senses indignantly reply, poor intellect, do you hope to defeat us while from us you borrow your evidence? Your victory is your defeat. Schrödinger loves this exchange because it nails the problem. Our intellect's scientific model says only atoms are real, sensations are not, but the only reason we believe in atoms is because our senses gave us evidence. If you try to throw out sensual qualities as mere appearance, you undermine the foundation of science itself, which depends on observations, that is, our senses. Thus, the victory of explaining the world purely in atomic terms becomes a defeat, since it cannot explain the very existence of sensory experience that led us to those terms. Schrödinger doesn't offer a pat solution to this dilemma. Instead, he invites us to truly appreciate the depth of the problem. He is telling us that conscious experience, the yellowness of yellow, the sound of a violin, the taste of chocolate, is a real and undeniable part of nature, yet it falls outside the current scientific worldview. This is why it remains a mystery in his eyes. In simple terms, mind and matter seem to be speaking different languages. Matter can be measured and mapped, but mind is felt and experienced. How they connect is an open question. Schrödinger believed confronting this question is crucial for a full understanding of reality. In The Mystery of the Sensual Qualities, Erwin Schrödinger masterfully articulates what has come to be known as the hard problem of consciousness, the challenge of explaining subjective experience in an objective world. The lasting impact of this essay is evident. Today, scientists and philosophers still grapple with the puzzle he described. Modern terms like qualia, for individual instances of subjective experience, and phrases like explanatory gap echo Schrödinger's insights from decades ago. His work reminds us that the mind is not something we can simply ignore or reduce to equations. It is central to our understanding of the world. Please, let us know in the comments what you think about this. Let's all engage in deep conversations and let's share some personal insights. Thanks for supporting this project with a like and a subscription. See you tomorrow.